It's Way Up with Angela Yee, and I am so excited to have this sunshine in the room with me today. Charis Jones, a.k.a. Miss Sassy Jones. And you know her clothing and makeup, and you can see the accessories line, which I have on right now, and the makeup. I have on the Boss lipstick. But Charis Jones is here. You are the founder of Sassy Jones. Mm-hmm. And I first, the reason why this even came about, I was interviewing Tabitha Brown on her book tour, and I loved her outfit so much. And she was like, oh, this is Sassy Jones. Let me send you the information. And I was like, okay. And then I looked it up, and I saw so many amazing things. And I was like, how have I not been purchasing this, prior to this? So I just want to put that out there. Thank you so much to Tabitha Brown for putting me on.
Yeah, legit. Thank you so much to Tabitha Brown as well.
Yeah.
And like the crazy thing, Angela, like how that even came to be, she obviously wore the right outfit on the right night because we sent her so many things, just like the celebrity world. You have no idea what they're going to pick.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they can show up in anything. And obviously she picked the right thing, which made this connection. So I'm so grateful.
And then I was hitting you up like, we got to get this. But you're from Richmond, Virginia.
Yes.
And you also went to Hampton. So you're a real Virginia person.
Yeah, legit. Like I went to Hampton. I did not graduate, but they do claim me.
Okay, good. As they should.
They definitely claim me. But yes, attended Hampton University proudly.
Now, why didn't you graduate?
Because I actually left school my sophomore year to go take a job in sales.
Okay.
And like learn how to talk to people, learn how to build relationships. That was like my first commission job. I was selling furniture. So I like chucked the deuces to Hampton University to like go out, get my own townhouse and get a job and like start my own adult life. I felt like
That's
I was
amazing,
wasting time in college.
You were a teenager then.
And I went to Hampton when I was 15.
What?
Yeah. So I was out of there very quickly. Had my mom co-sign for an apartment about 17?
That is so grown. I can't even. When I was 17, I think I was a freshman in college when I was 17. I was nowhere near ready for that. Where did that come from? That independence and.
That's a great question. I get that question a lot. I think I was born with it, honestly. Like I had really, really strong women that I grew up with, like my grandmother. She was an entrepreneur. She was a cleaning lady. She cleaned all like the big movie theaters and like she had her own contracts. So I saw that. And my mom's a hustler.
Right.
Like my mother, we're 16 years apart. And so like a product of a teenage pregnancy, but she like made it through. She hustled. So I got a lot of that grit from them. And then just made it my own sauce, like really made it into my own thing.
I love that. That is an amazing story because sometimes people can be very judgmental about having kids at a young age. But I will say a lot of my really good friends, my friend Ingrid, who started this wine company, iBest Wine, she's a teenage mom and she started her own company and, has been working ever since. But I feel like there is a sense of kind of, I don't even know what the right word is, but when we talk about independence and grit and determination that can be instilled in you, that's a real thing.
Yeah, and I think it comes by just necessity. You know what I mean? Like when you're 15 and 16, getting put out of your house, like having nowhere to go, needing to find a way to make it, you find a way to make it because the boats have all been burned. There are no plan Bs. So like the only way is forward.
That's okay. We're going to get to now the clothing line and how this all started.
Yeah.
Because what's amazing to me is that you've pivoted several different times to figure out a better way to do things. Because sometimes something doesn't work the way we intended. I think most times businesses don't work the way that you anticipated. You have a whole plan and idea, which is nothing wrong with that. You should have a plan and you should have an idea, but also really be willing to be flexible.
Right.
So you started Sassy Jones in 2013, correct?
Yep, you're right.
All right, so 2013, and I remember reading about how you sold your car.
Yeah,
you
for
had a Benz.
$3,200. Yeah.
And you had twin boys, very young at the time.
Yeah.
Right?
There were 4 months when I jump started the brand.
Okay, so then talk to me about how you started the brand and initially what your concept was.
Well, initially I wanted it to be like an MLM. Like you could buy and sell jewelry and like have reps to sell it for you.
Okay.
But when I figured I was an entrepreneur, I was working my corporate gig and I sold everything from like banking products, insurance, food to restaurants, all of it. So like marketing and sales it's in my blood. And I always feel like you're going to have a transferable skill from your past that you're going to take with you into the next leg of your journey. And so I took a little bit of secret sauce from all the corporations that I worked for. And I was in the car one day driving to Geico. Like my commute was like an hour and a half. And I heard this radio commercial and it was like, hey, you can come and set up your table at this trade show and like pay this entry fee. And it was like this transformation expo, something like Circle of Sisters.
Okay,
right?
all right.
And so I was like, well, what would I do? I don't have a business. Like, if I were to show up, how would I show up? So the wheels started to turn, and I was like, fashion. It's in my blood. Just watching the women, that I grew up with and how my grandmother would enter a room, how she wore her brooches and her furs and all of that. Like, I grew up around that,
right.
like that glamour. So it was just, I guess it was just natural. But I was like, but I'm broke. That's the problem, right?
Like, we're gonna figure this out.
Right? Like I ain't got no money. So I decided to stick with accessories in the beginning because it's low cost of entry. Mm-hmm. It's one size fits all. And at that time I wasn't designing. I would buy wholesale, right?
Right.
And so I didn't have any money to do the show, so I sold the car. Like for $3,200.
Wild, because that's really betting on yourself.
Yeah. And you have to as an entrepreneur. Like my husband, he had no concept of proof.
Right.
He wasn't going to like fund this, So I'm like, if it's your dream, you got to make it your own.
What did he say when you did that?
He thought it was crazy as hell.
That's probably what he loved about you too at the same time.
It is. It's exactly what he's attracted to,
at the
right?
same time, it's like, she crazy, but I like it.
Right.
Let's go
and
for
he
it.
wouldn't have any other way. He's attracted to the crazy. But I got the money, bought inventory, and paid the $800 for the show. And then so on that day, I was like, okay, I was so afraid because there were all these other like well-known establishments, brands, jewelry brands already there. Mm-hmm. Like Origami Owl back then, all the names, right? And I'm little brown girl, knees buckling, setting up my table as best I could. I wanted to try to look as corporate as I could with the funds that I had, right? And so then all the people started to come in. And I'm like, hang on a second. I'm good at this. Wait a second.
Was that your sales background, you think, kicking
Yes,
in? Okay.
Totally, right? And people would just walk by and be like, oh, that's not for me. Like us women sometimes say, right? I think we have a way sometimes of counting ourselves out. And I wondered what that meant. I heard that like, oh, I can't pull that off. That's not for me. This necklace is too sparkly to wear that close to my face.
Right.
And I'm like, what does that mean psychologically? Like inside our minds, what is that negative self-talk? What does that sound like?
Right.
Why am I continuing to hear this loop over and over and over? And so I was like, F that. Nope. And they will walk. I will go out in the aisle and get them like, nope, come here, try this on. Yeah.
You were
like
not
hustling,
playing,
no.
right.
And handed them the mirror. And then like we will all hype them up. Like, you look so amazing. What would you wear with it? Right? I had my girlfriends with me. I
was going to ask you who was there with you that was helping you hype people up.
It was my best friend. To this day, she is our marketing director. I did not pay her. And my other two...
Here's some earrings, girl.
Right, here goes some earrings. Right, you take them. And she was happy with it.
Right.
And she's always worked from that place of love, if you will. And so I had some other girlfriends with me, but I learned so much about my journey on that day. I learned that, I made way more in the one day than I did on my 2-week paycheck at work. And I was like, check. It's something to this, right? Like I have a proof of concept that this deserves some more of my energy. And then the second thing is I found my ministry, like legit helping women see themselves just a little bit differently. And my conduit is just style and fashion. But for me, it is a ministry and it happens to be profitable.
What do you think about hearing that radio commercial? And then that was kind of what was the catalyst for you to do what you did. You think that was like a divine calling at that moment? Because sometimes we hear something and we shut out that voice.
Yeah.
But you heard something and you actually followed that voice.
Angela, I never thought about it that way. Like legit. Yeah, I don't know if I didn't hear that on that day that I wouldn't have taken the turn that I took. That's serendipitous, honestly. That's, yeah, you're right. I never thought about it that way.
And I want to encourage people to listen to the radio. No, okay. On that note, listen to the radio and follow our voice.
Right. And listen to the voice, right. You got to be present to hear it. Because I could have been dabbing on the phone. I could have been talking on the phone. I could have been listening. Anything, right? But it seeped and it melted. And I actually took action from it.
Because you know how many times we hear things that we're like, man, I should try. Nah, I can't do that.
Girl.
And you could have been like, I can't do that. But instead, you sold your car.
Immediately.
You went and bought the wholesale items. Then you got your best friend to come out and work.
Yep.
And you did it.
And did it.
And I always feel like that's the first step. A lot of times we talk ourselves out of things that could really be beneficial to us, but we're so scared. You know, fear can stop you from doing a lot of things, but you, for some reason, that particular day, you know, heard that and went for it. So, you know, kudos to you for that. Now, the way the business started, then you ended up saying, okay, let's do e-commerce. Now, talk to me about making the decision to go from doing things like that and actually going and selling in-store to saying, I need to do e-commerce.
Listen, entrepreneurship and being a business owner is all about pivoting.
Right.
And you have to be able, you were talking about the signs. I feel like there are signs everywhere, but you have to be still and sensitive enough to be able to receive and interpret what they mean, right? And so I did the whole trade show circuit for, a year and a half while I had the babies. And it was one day I was driving home from Florida and I about ran off the road. It was like 3 a.m. in the morning.
Exhausted.
Just dead. Like being a new mom to twins at that. I never recommend that ever.
Right.
But that's how bad I wanted it, right? And so I was like, I called my husband. I said, I got to do something else. Like, I'm not making any money. I'm broke. I'm running. I could kill myself, right? Just from like, you know, just exhausting all of my energy. And so I said, what can I do to still not have to go back to my traditional job, but still like work in this vein? So those same shelves that I used to set up at the trade shows, I set it up in my kitchen and I took my phone and I started to live stream. And on my first live stream, I had 12 or 13 people and I made $600.
Okay.
And that was pure profit.
By the way, that is a great, as far as people like interacting, that's amazing to have 12 or 13 people and make money. Okay.
Right. And that conversion rate was spectacular. And I'm like, yo. Told people 600. There is something to this. So I continued to do it. And
the Sparkle Party.
Sparkle Party. There you go. And started to build a following around it. And that's how I sort of pivoted to digital.
And, you know, part of the brand, it is you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And seeing who you are as a person behind the brand, that is, you know, that does attract people, like when they see the authenticity, because there's certain brands that we don't know who makes that clothing line. We don't know who makes that jewelry. We don't know who's behind it. But when it's somebody that we can connect to, it's a whole different ball game. And wanting to spend our money there and know, like, I like her a lot. Let me, you know, I like her stuff and I want to buy something.
Right. And I think it makes a difference because people buy people. You know, it's not, you don't buy things. You invest into relationships.
Right.
And also, I can speak from this place because I've been around the block. And let me just tell you something. To all business owners who are out there listening, who are afraid to step in front of your brand, like you want to be behind the scenes, you want to be like, in 2024, we have to know who you are, right? We have to have a connection. We have to have a relationship with you in order for it to scale. Can you do it without it? Sure.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like, you will get so much further if people can understand your why, if people can understand who you are, they can tell stories and share stories about the product that they've invested in, right? People want to become smarter with interacting with you. And so that's what I feel that we do, especially when we were doing Sparkle Party. The other thing is I actually delegated my being the face of the brand away and failed miserably.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, explain that.
Because I was in scale, right? Like COVID, we grew over 12,000% in 3 years.
Right.
It's insane.
That was, I mean, the timing for that too was, I mean, not that COVID was a great time or anything, but business-wise, for the entrepreneurs that could be flexible, that were online, that already had that following, that was an amazing situation financially.
Absolutely. Like, it just put a megaphone to what we were already doing, you know, and I feel like we got kind of like blown out of a cannonball, if you will, during COVID, and we grew super, super, super fast. The thing with growing that rapidly for everybody who's trying to be an overnight success, when you go that fast, things break, right? You miss lessons because you are speeding down the highway. So one of the lessons that I missed scaling, I started to get a team. You know, it's like, okay, we got 40 people, 40 full-time people working here now, right? Like, this is amazing.
That's a lot.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship was my first anything in management. I never managed anyone, right? It had no leadership experience, but I'm learning it on the job while trying to build this brand, right? And so I said, oh, well, when you scale, you have to delegate, right? Girl, I delegated my genius. And so I had people that were like, I was like, no, you go do it. You go I'll teach you how to do it. Because I thought that's what I was supposed to do.
Right.
And then quickly learned like, no.
Putting out fires
But
everywhere.
girl, with a fire, like, shh, you know? So
that's a hard balance though, right?
Oof.
Because they always say work smarter, not harder, and have people around you that work with you that could be smarter than you in certain things, but that's also hard to find.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes when it's your brain and you care so much and you have that anticipation that other people will too, a lot of times they will fail you if you expect that they're going to care about your brand as much as you do. And usually people don't. You know, just to be all the way honest, and I'm not saying that they should. The way that I've always worked is whenever I work somewhere, I'm always going like 1,000%. But a lot of people aren't like that. Like if I agree to do a job, I will go above and beyond to make sure I do that job. But some people are like, this is a job.
Yeah.
I'm getting my salary. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and not more than that. And then a lot of times when you do try to delegate that authority, you know, you end up having to come back and do it again. And then you're like, this just wasted so much time.
Yeah, you're right. And even like building a team, like that was terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you know, but I think as entrepreneurs, you got to put yourself in groups. I didn't have the luxury of finishing school, right? And so it's just like finding people who are walking along the same journey so that you can learn from them.
Didn't your mom work for you for a minute too?
Girl, yeah, she was the shortest tenure employee
All right,
ever.
talk to me about that.
Okay.
What that was like, because family and working with family, and that's your mom.
Yeah.
You know.
And actually, it's all intertwined. So I work with my best friend. I work with my husband. He's the president. And my mother. And there's all kind of family up in it. Girl, pray for me in accessory prayer.
Okay.
So,
Dear
yeah.
God, please cover Charis Jones.
Girl. So she started, I don't even know. Okay. It's like, girl, you brought us a trauma, child. Okay. So I always counted it pride to like retire her, right? Like that was like the joy. Like that's the dream, right? And so I was like, Mom, she had a background in sales too. I was like, we need a VP to help us push, right? And she was like, okay. She left. That was a first like red flag.
Okay.
It was too easy.
Yeah.
It was way too easy. She had worked for her job for like, she could almost retire. And she was going to walk off. And I was like, okay, great. Great. Okay, you're over here.
I ain't coming in tomorrow.
She was like, I ain't coming in. I'm over here with Sassy Jones. And then I started to see some of what I dealt with as a child show up in the business. So like, you know, Black mamas got a reckless mouth, especially those of a certain generation, right? And it's like, Ma, you can't, these aren't your little cousins and stepchildren. Right. These are my employees.
You cannot talk crazy to
no,
the employees.
You can't.
Right.
You know, and if we do, I have to reprimand, I have to correct that.
Because that also could be a reason if somebody chose to at that time, that they could be like the workplace, you know, issues with how I'm being spoken to. You never know.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was my concern. That was my fear, right?
Yeah.
And also like the nepotism, like, or favoritism. I can't let you behave this way when I would let no one else behave this way. I can't. You know, so child, I brought her in. It was a glass conference room. I never forget it. I had the HR lady there and I was like, you're the mediator, right? Just so you can take notes and whatnot. I said Lisa, because I can't say Ma, right? I said Lisa, and that was the first thing right there, right? And so I was like, we're getting some complaints about how you're speaking to people. It's like, I really don't want to, this is such an uncomfortable conversation for me to even have, but I have to have it. So like, what can we do? And I don't know what it was that she was going through or what it was that I may have said that set her completely off. She gathered her things and left and walked out. And later I learned that she felt humiliated and she felt belittled
because the HR person.
The HR person and the environment. And she was like, you could have talked to me separately, which I could have retrospectively. I think we both could have very much done things differently.
But, the lines are blurred because if it was an employee only, that's what you would have done. And so it's really hard to say what's the right thing to do in that situation because you're trying to run this as a business and treat her in that business space like an employee. But at the same time, she's looking at it like, you're my child. Right. Why would you involve... That's a tough one. I don't even know what I would have recommended to do in that position.
I did the best I could do, and it took me out. So she walked out, right? When she did that, it triggered my childhood abandonment issues, right? Mm-hmm. Because this is like mom walking out again. And really the only reason after a lot of therapy, I realized I had her there is so that she could see me, right? And I'm like, okay, I'll bring it closer so you can see me. My intentions were wrong from the jump, right? Okay. Because I was seeking something from her that I was trying to get in a roundabout way. And instead of just communicating what my issues were, I was trying to heal them professionally. And so, girl, she left and she turned her stuff in. Wow. And I was like, and then the next day she was like, I was just kidding. I was like, I can't do this. The next day, we already had arrangements for me to drop my twins off because I was headed off to a conference. And she was like, okay, well, I'll be there at so-and-so tomorrow. I was like, what are you talking about?
You were like, you turned all your stuff in. And you also probably were like a little relieved.
No, I was really hurt.
But not because it didn't feel like it was working, though.
No, but I wanted it to. I'm like that kind of delirious, hopeful kind of person. I really wanted it.
You thought you would have that conversation and be able to move on.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Ice cream and really, I thought it would be amazing. But there was so much crap up underneath that interaction that had to be unpacked, which is the reason she responded how she did. Mm-hmm. And the reason I emoted the way that I did. And so, my mom was the shortest tenured employee ever. She went on to become an entrepreneur, which she should be.
Right.
And
working with family is so hard. So, let's take it to your husband, Keon, right?
Yeah, Keon, yeah.
Yes. So talk about working with Keon, your husband.
Girl. Okay. If you can do this, Angela, you can do anything. Because you can be the president of the United States because it is so difficult.
Okay.
It is incredibly, I'm going to give you the real tea. Listen, any entrepreneur who's listening or business owner or who runs a generational or a family business understands the dynamic, right? Mm-hmm. Because it never turns off. What else? Oh, the challenges that arise at work. We bring home, right. And then it affects the marriage, right? Because how can you not, right? Before we say good morning, sometimes he'll ask me a question about something on the data or something Shopify or whatever, And so it is a constant pulling, constant realignment.
But the one good thing is, he's always got your back.
And here's the pro. If you can figure that out, if you can work through that, I trust him like nobody's business.
Right.
He is my built-in best friend. The loyalty is insane.
Yes.
The place that he makes decisions from, I know it's coming from a place of love. He works just as hard, if not harder, than I do.
Right.
And the support, you can't put a price tag on that.
Yeah.
And
it's just that, again, that's a balance, though, because in business, there's always going to be things you disagree on, or maybe a time when you're not in the mood for it, or you're trying to shut it off and you can't.
Yeah, it's that way exactly. But you know what? The rule for us is this is us. We don't try to stay in no kind of boundary because it's stressful to try to stay in that boundary versus just letting it flow and be what it is. And so we talk business at the dinner table and on date night.
Right.
And in the morning. And the sooner that I became okay with that, things got easier.
Okay.
Instead of me trying to perfect it.
What did your therapist say about that?
Okay. My therapist thinks that it's all my fault, right? I'm there trying to
him.
Yeah, right. I'm like, it's him. He's like, no, it's how you process and it's how you frame it, right? So I have a trust issue. And every time he says things and I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. I would challenge him, right? And he's like, well, why the hell you got me over here if you're going to challenge everything that I say?
Okay.
And I'm like, And I have to constantly zip myself up and throw that narrative out, because it's not factual. It has no basis. There's no evidence of it at all. It's all made up. And it's crazy how in leadership and when you become someone in the world or like more responsibility, that the things in your childhood show up.
Right. It's absolutely
crazy. And you're like, what is this? And then you got to go back and work on it, So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you've been working on it amazingly. And I want to talk about also furthering your knowledge and education when it comes to business.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something important for entrepreneurs too. You can't just run the business. Now you have to figure, how do I continue to scale and level up?
Yeah.
So let's talk about certain things that you've done and fellowships that you've gotten that have helped you with your business.
Absolutely. So the first and foremost is attend conferences. If there's any conference that you see that is in your industry, pay the money. Figure out how to get the money, put it on a credit card, and go. I remember the first conference that I attended was TSP. It's run by a wonderful entrepreneur by the name of Lamar Tyler, and he specializes in digital brands, right? And so I was like, I've never seen anything like this, and it's black. It's blackity black, right? And so I went there. I saw Mike McAllowitz, the author of Profit First, speak, and I cried. Like, legit, I was like, I didn't know that these resources were available for me. So go set yourself free, learn things at the conferences. Also join masterminds, right? And so if there's any cohort or other businesses that are doing what you're doing, or even in different industries, join. I think a lot of times we'll count ourselves out and be like, oh, I can't learn that from them. They in construction, or they in restaurant. You can. And actually, that's the best kind of learning, from people who are not in your industry, right? And so there's that. Also, a really good recommendation to any kind of business owner is the Tory Burch Foundation. Yep. Amazing. She accepts 50 entrepreneurs through her nonprofit every single year. And let me tell you how good this is. To this day, I can talk to her staff.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's called Office Hours.
Okay.
And so like her global head of human resources, talking to try to figure out how we build this next part of our business and who I need to hire. She gets on the phone with me for like 30 minutes and like I take notes like a mad woman. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm just glad you said that, because people always need to hear like specific resources.
Yes.
And just to hear the things that you've done to get you to the journey where you are right now. And let's talk about some of when you realized how successful this business was about to be, because there's always that point where you're like, wow, this is actually working, because it doesn't happen right away.
No.
And a lot of times the money is getting invested. You're in actually spending money.
Yeah.
Before you can even break even. When you get to that break even point, you're like, oh, thank you, Jesus.
Party.
I ain't got to come out my pocket. Right. But so talk to me about when you realize I'm actually about to make money.
I think it was 2018. No, it was 2017.
Okay, 4 years in.
Yeah, 4 years in. My husband, I wanted him to leave Verizon. And I was like, I've gotten this thing kind of far. I need your help. And he was like, hell to the no, because he's super risk averse. He's like, he's square, right? Like, I'm not coming off of my job to play in some jewelry with you. And like, he's just not, And then so, because he's been head of household and all of that, and he gave me 3 goals to reach before he would even consider. And I reached those goals in 6 months. And I was like, that was the first moment where I was like, this is something. If you put your pedal to the metal.
What were the goals?
So he wanted me to reach $1 million in sales.
Okay.
He wanted me to hire more people, 5 more people, and like build out a shipping department, because I was still shipping orders myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's like the work smarter, not harder, because that's a lot of work.
It is.
Dealing with that alone is a lot. Okay.
Girl. And then
with
people
returns,
mad.
yeah, with returns, with things going to the wrong addresses.
Oh,
with
Lord.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Things getting stolen.
Yes, right. It didn't show up on my doorstep, but UPS said that it's there and they got a picture.
There's a picture. You're holding the package, but you didn't get it. Okay.
Right. And then he wanted me to just learn more about leadership, because he had management experience.
Okay.
Right? And so that's when I
fair.
joined.
Those are great. And then you reached him, and then he was like,
Right. He was like, hey, wait a minute. I thought it would take you years to do this. And I was like, no, I'm serious about bringing you over, and I'm serious about Sassy Jones. What it do? And that was the first moment that I was like, girl, this is something.
That's dope. Now, when you talk about your sons, right, and your kids, because you do have twins.
Yes.
Sometimes as a mom, especially they were very young when you first started this.
Yeah.
Women can feel guilty. People never ask men like, oh, do you have kids? Do you have a family? How do you do it? But they do ask women that all of the time. Talk to me about that balance, because there are a lot of people who are mothers who are trying to be an entrepreneur, who want to do that, but they feel like restricted because of that.
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't go away. Can I just tell you that? It gets better. And the more, like, the older the kids get, I involve them in what I'm doing so they actually understand why mommy is going to go do these things. But the feelings on the inside of mommy still are there. So let me just say that. They're not as horrible as they used to be, but those emotions definitely do still exist. The thing about the man-woman balance, okay, I'm in this group called YPO, right? And have you ever heard of it?
No.
Oh, so it stands for Young Presidents Organization. And I think the revenue minimum is 15 mil annually, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of men in it. There's hardly any, there are women, but it's like maybe 25% women.
Wow.
We need more, right? And so when I go to certain places or do certain things, even outside of the group, I notice how many men dominate CEO level, right? And entrepreneurship and all of that. But if I'm alone, they don't ask them where their wives are. But they ask me where my husband is. Right? They're not asking who's keeping the kids to the man.
Never.
They're asking me, so where are your kids? Where are yours? You know what I mean? And then just in the business world, I run into that a lot, even with banking conversations. And when we're trying to do partnerships and things like that, if me and Keon are in the room, they are looking at Keon.
Right. Like
speaking.
Like you didn't start this and it's not called Sassy Jones.
No, they talking to him.
Right.
And I'm just like, go ahead, bro. You know, like, let me know when you got a question.
Does your husband notice that too? Or is that something that...
He notices it and he hates it.
Okay.
Yeah, he does notice it. And I had to kind of like bring it to his attention because in the beginning he was completely oblivious.
Yeah, I do believe that. Sometimes guys are so, and it's not their fault that they don't notice that those things are happening because it's happening to us.
Yeah.
And so they're there and they're just having a conversation, not noticing. Because that happens to me. Like people will walk in the room, and this has happened to me, not as much anymore, but when I was first starting out, they will come in and shake everybody's hand and speak to everyone. If I'm the only woman, sometimes people don't even speak to you.
Nope, they don't.
Right.
You know, and so you just have to fight a little harder, you know, but the feminine energy is just so powerful. And like that is a superpower in and of itself, even in a room full of men. And it's just like using that because they don't have that.
Right.
You know?
And you can stand out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Without like playing.
And then you also know you have the foundation to be able to deliver and run it the way that you need to.
Absolutely.
That's why it's important. And you do have a brick and mortar, right? Also in Richmond?
Yes, we do. We have one. We're working on our second.
Okay. So tell me, because the brick and mortar is a whole nother beast.
Wow. It's a whole different kind of business.
So when did you open that store?
Okay, so back it up because I opened one prematurely before I
Okay,
had
good.
a
I'm glad you
strategy.
said that because sometimes people need to understand timing as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, timing is the biggest thing. Like in the beginning, we were talking about like knowing the signs and all of that. I completely ignored the signs. So I opened my first store 2018, right? And no strategy, just saw a little spot and was like, didn't do no research about the location, didn't do nothing. I was like, oh, I can afford the rent. Let's go. Just out here. Girl, COVID came.
Oh, damn.
COVID came, ain't had no strategy, closed it, right? Shut it down, right? And I was like, you know what? My gift was digital. My gift was e-com. When I came off the road, off the trade shows, it was to pivot to digital, right? So if you're going to do something, make sure that you've researched it incredibly well to the point where it's near impossible to fail, right? And so opened that store, closed it, and then really built up what everyone knows Sassy Jones to be at this phase of the juncture. And then so in 2022, that's when we opened our grand reopening of our flagship store in Richmond, Virginia.
All right. And how did you know that was the time? Because brick and mortar, like you said, it's a whole nother beast. I have a brick and mortar for my coffee. Coffee uplifts people.
Yeah.
And that is really dealing with like daily, making sure employees are doing what they're supposed to do. You don't want to get those bad reviews.
Yep.
You know, what made you decide to do that? And how is that different for people who are listening that are maybe thinking like, I want to, own a store, open up a store?
Well, first you can. but just do your research, right? So we had a lot of digital backing, like data, to say where we should open.
Okay.
And I wouldn't have been able to get that data if we did not pivot and invest in digital how I did, right? Because we could actually drill it down by zip code to see what locations are performing the best based on who's already shopping online, right? And so if they're doing well in that city, there's something about the city.
They'll come to that store.
Yeah, they just need a lemonade stand. That's
Right.
it, right? And so we're following the data on the next few build outs of retail. So that's what we're doing. But
Ooh,
it can
where's
be
the next
done.
store?
I can't say.
Okay, when? How about
Oh,
when?
man, October.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's soon.
Yeah, it's right around the corner.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
All right, now let's get to where we are now
Okay.
with so Tabitha and how you actually even ended up, hosting one of her book stops on the tour and interviewing her.
Yeah. So that was Tabitha put up a post that she was going on a book tour. And I was like, Jesus, this is amazing. How can we support it, right? I DM'd her. And she had already been a customer, and I didn't realize it because she was shopping under alias, right? And my marketing director, my best friend, caught it. She was like, yo, we got her information, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, we're going to slide in her DM. Y'all don't be afraid to like DM people. They may not respond, but this is how we got the opportunity. So I said, Tabitha, let's dress you for the book tour. And she was like, she sent me back a voice note. She was like, baby, she said, that's so sweet, but we got other things, but you can still send it. And I was like, but I hear a yes.
Right. You didn't say no, and you did ask me to send it.
Right. So we sent it. Didn't hear anything. They returned some stuff, sizes that she couldn't fit. I didn't hear anything concrete until she was going on Good Morning America. The morning. I got a text at 6 a.m. and her logistics manager was like, watch Good Morning America this morning. I was like,
uh-oh. What we about to do?
So that's how it started. And then that's where it began. She didn't ask me to host anything.
Right.
And then so she wore the things. I think she was like 2 stops in maybe. And I was like, God, I said, I would be amazing to host Richmond. I don't know who she has. And at that point, she had already had a host because there was only one show. So I wouldn't even have had an opportunity. She had the dude. It was done. I was like, God, I could really do this. And was it 2 days later, I got the phone call.
Wow.
Asking me to host. And they were adding a second show in my city.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
When I tell you, and I say this all the time, God be looking out for me.
Yes. God don't play about us.
It feels good. Like every time you think things are sliding backwards, something positive happens to keep you pushing forward.
Right. And the work is to like actually see that and not be so jaded and like all of the shortcomings and all the trials and all the tribulations that you can actually see positivity when it's right in front of you. So you can continue to be encouraged.
Now, the brand has been self-funded, right?
Yeah.
And it's still self-funded to this point.
Yeah.
Ooh, have you been thinking about getting funding? Like, what are the plans for that? Because I also know how difficult it is from what I have to deal with now. And as you're expanding into more locations, is that something that you're thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, it's like unnecessarily difficult, right? That's what I say. And like all the people around me are like, it's time, Charis. It's time. It's past due. It's time.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, 100% own. But I am considering and vetting. And like, I'm going to start with a board of advisors first to see how that goes. Because for me, I'm not in entrepreneurship to like grow super rapidly, even though we did.
Right.
Like I am if we are at this revenue level for the rest of my life, I'm actually okay. Because for me, it's about the enjoyment, the freedom, the quality of life, and the impact from the women that we serve.
Because it's not just the products.
No.
It's also empowering.
Yes.
And there's a story behind the products. And there's something, like I said, I've been a mess right now moving. I put these earrings on today and this Boss lipstick. Immediately you just feel, a little better from doing what you have to do. And then even seeing your outfit and you coming in here, the bright colors, the patterns, it is something that I feel like looks amazing.
Yes.
Like when I see it, it just instantly makes you feel like more cheerful.
Yeah, and that's the whole psychology behind it. It's like even on the days where you don't feel like wearing color or you don't feel like putting yourself together, do it anyway. Because it does have a trickle-down effect. And like maybe around 3 o'clock, you look at yourself in the mirror and it's like, I'm glad I did that. You have the opportunity to re-inspire yourself. The other thing is when you look good, you tend to feel good, and then you tend to do great things, you know? So it's just like, it's an art just to put a little something.
And it
You
feels
gotta
nice
be
when
all
you're
diva.
outside and somebody's like, oh, I like your whatever. And you're like, oh, well, thank you.
Like we count it as like form of self-expression and a form of self-care. And like for me, it's just what I'm feeling on the inside. This is art. You know what I mean? Like the colors and all, it's just art.
Right.
Yeah. So.
All right. So we were talking about invest. So you are thinking about as you expand, it might be time because funding your own business, I'm going through it now too, is not an easy thing to do, especially when you're trying to expand and you're like, man, I got this to take care of, this to take care of this. And it also allows you to have more of a marketing budget for other things and not have to be so stressed about all of that.
Right. Because imagine what I think about is imagine if you could do all the things that you're doing right now, but you're not stressed about the daily revenue.
Right.
Right.
Because money is a stressor. What made you decide to start doing therapy?
Oh, my goodness. I noticed, when did I start? I noticed that things were showing up. Remember I was saying things were showing up in my leadership that I was like, why isn't it okay that you share? Like, why do you have an issue delegating and like constantly taking things back because they didn't do it good? Why can't you just train forward and empower that person to the point where they get it? Another part of that is that also the anxiety of being so afraid that your cards will fall. If you do give it to that person, they don't. It's like, I can't afford for my cards to fall. No. So I'm going to have to do it. And then you end up clenching and you can't receive more because your hands are full because you've clenched so much. And for me, it's like, Lord, I'm just ready to release and be able to trust more and be able to grow my team more and be able to not worry so much. And so for me, it was like, I need some help with this. Like, help me. I lay on the couch.
Right.
Snotting. I'm fine to do it, but I just want to get better. It's like recognizing your ish, owning it.
Right. Absolutely. Man, well, you have had some amazing things happening for you. You also have your foundation.
Yes.
And I was reading an article also about how you actually built 2 education centers in Kenya. So can you discuss that? Because I want to make sure we talk about and I feel like this is important, as you get to the point where you're making money, because part of wanting to make money is wanting to be able to help other people.
Yeah.
And you've done that. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's about impact. Like you have to be making a difference in someone's life in all the things that you're doing. So I went on my 40th to Kenya. We went to Masai Mara. And it was just a pleasureful vacation. I was not expecting to do what I did, right? We visited this little school. And the children there were so amazing. They were learning some of the same things that my boys were learning. But you could see that there was a huge poverty gap, right? Like you could just see it. And so I was talking to the principal and I asked her, I was like, so what can we do? Like, what you need? And she was like, books. And I was like, no, but like, how can we really make a big, big difference? And we went in her office and she had this coffee book on her table and we hadn't come up with what we could do yet. At this point, I was just still okay with sending them school books, right? And then I go to flip in this coffee book, this book, and I noticed that all the people who had contributed to that little school were white. And we were in Africa. And I asked her and I was like, this is it? She was like, yeah. I was like, well, let's change that. Maybe we can build something together, because she was also telling me about how the girls are starting to get like toxicity, like infections from menstrual poverty because they're cutting like shirt sleeves off, dirty shirt sleeves and using them as maxi pads, right? And so they're getting all these infections. And so I'm like, well, and also teenage pregnancy because they're housed together.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, can we maybe build something where the girls are separate and then we could stock it with like feminine hygiene products? And she was like, sure. She was like,
yeah, let's see if that happens.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. And then we figure out how to do it and ended up doing it. And the goal was only to build one, and we ended up building 2.
That's amazing. Because there's so many things that we take for granted that you can go. That's a life-changing trip for you.
Yeah.
On your 40th. I always say like one of the main things of wanting to be successful in business is wanting to be able to help other people.
Yeah.
And so that is so dope. I just want people to see everything that you've been doing. You came up here. I know there's so much more to what you have going on, but shop Sassy Jones. Please make sure that you do it. And is there anything we missed that you want to make sure? I mean, I know there's a lot, but.
I mean, I think we hit on all the hot spots, Angela. And I just want to just recognize you and like big you up for the work that you do. Because like having me here as a woman-owned entrepreneur and continually doing this Wednesday or whenever it ends up airing, continually giving others a platform to share their story. You probably have no idea how many people you're blessing.
No, I love it. And what I love to see is when we have somebody up here, and I only have people up here who I think are amazing, right? And you know, I want to see that return with people going to shop Sassy Jones. You do amazing already, but I want to even like see the impact that has, because I know as an entrepreneur myself how difficult it is, you know, at certain times. And people automatically think, oh, she's got a brand, she's got this going on, she's good. But you have a lot more to do. And a lot of times there's, you know, down periods.
Yes.
And yeah. So, you know, whatever it is, like the clothing is amazing. I'm going to be wearing my stuff too. So hopefully I'm waiting for a right time to wear my outfit, because I feel like it's so special. I don't want to just wear it to work.
When it'll hit you, whenever it hits you, let it.
But make sure y'all shop Sassy Jones, and the jewelry, when I tell you, is real statement pieces. Yeah. Like you could wear one of the necklaces and just wear like a wife beater and some jeans, and it's gonna make your whole outfit change. And I love things like that.
The jewelry is the outfit.
Yeah, exactly. Where you can just be plain here, but you put that on and bow. It's like, wow, where did you get that? So I love that, and I love to have you up here. And I know we're gonna end up doing some more things together in the future. I already know.
Yeah, I can feel it too.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And again, like she told you, listen to the radio and follow that voice. I'm going to use that. Sassy Jones, make sure you guys follow Charis Jones, and so many gems today. Definitely got to have you back.
Absolutely.
All right, it's way up.